Hey, Margie here. Hip fractures is something we all want to avoid. But the good news is that there's a product that you can wear that, if you did fall, would absorb 80% of the forces from the fall and can protect your hip from a fracture. That's what we're going to talk about today with our special guest, Natasha Williams. And since early 2007, Natasha had a vision for creating high performing hip protection to help prevent fall related hip fractures, starting with her first hip protector in 2008, with an initial focus on the New Zealand market where she's from. But since that time, she has developed a new hip protector, partnering with WinPack, a US based leader in sports and military protection called Phoenix Hipwear, which was launched in 2021 with an innovative and proprietary material technology. And it's very exciting. And you're going to learn all about it in today's episode. So stay tuned. Welcome, Natasha. I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast. It's so funny because we met, I think in 2014. It's been a while. And
It
I
is.
will, yeah. So I'm just excited because I think this can really help a lot of people. And I think what you've done with this product is so incredible. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I always love the backstory. How did you get let's actually let's show people what we're talking about first so they understand. So we're talking about this hip protector, which is just so incredible, but Natasha's going to explain it more, and it just goes in your underwear. So Natasha, tell us about the product first, and then tell us
Okay.
your backstory, how you got into doing this.
Okay. So, hi, Maggie. Great to see you again. Yeah, we met in 2014 over East Coast. So, like, figure out with the accent, I'm from New Zealand and currently living in New Zealand. So essentially, a hip protector is there to help reduce the risk of a hip fracture. Really simple. Um, and how do we do that? Well, it's been done in different ways. But what we do is look at a great comfortable pair of underwear with pockets and a really great technology that can reduce the force of fall to below fracture threshold and just give you that extra protection. So, relatively simple concept. If we scroll back quite a few years, I was really looking at how to get involved in a business that did more than just focus on revenue, but how do we do something that helps people? And what are the needs that are out there? And when I came across the concept of hip protectors, so didn't invent the concept, just changed it quite radically. Hip protectors were something that were a great concept, but nobody really wanted to use them. So previously, hip protection had been essentially either memory foam, so big, about dinner plate size, quite thick, and in garments that were quite honestly awful. And always say, no offense to male engineers, but most of the hip protector focus had come out of an engineering lab who had great intentions, but couldn't actually transfer that into, well, hey, somebody who wears these might actually be concerned about how they look and might actually want to wear something that's attractive and comfortable. So that was kind of where the genesis came from. That's where it started. And I fairly naively back then, because I was a little bit younger, thought, there's been so many advances in material technology, and people who need a product like this are not just old and frail and stuffed in the back of a nursing home. Um, what about the people like my mother, who was very tiny, osteoporotic, but led a really active life? How did they get their protection? And so that's where I started the whole development process and said, well, let's first of all take these into two components. We need a shield that, no question, performs really well. And it was about going out and finding what new material technologies could achieve that. And then I said, okay, they need to be in underwear. Now, there is lots of opportunity for the garments, yoga leggings, etc. But let's start with underwear. How can we just take underwear, make it functional, make it attractive, make it super comfortable, and imagine if there were no shields in it, would this be the most comfortable underwear you could wear? Easy to wash, easy to dry, all that, and put on, and super good fit. And then separately, those were developed with the view that once they then come together, you have a hip protector that people will choose to wear because they know it's going to help them, but they don't mind putting it on. So that's kind of the background to how we ended up with what we have today. The current technology is a step ahead from what we were when I first met you in 2014. At that point, the shield was sewn onto the side of the garment, and the technology was fantastic. So we had lots of people using them, fantastic. But there were limitations because they were sewn on, so you needed new garments, you needed to buy the whole set. And we looked at, I suppose my focus is always about improvement and design and how do we do better. So for me, it was constantly what out there is better. So material technology develops, well, at such a rate because most of it comes out of the sports space. And so sports has money, impact protection in sports has money. So I looked to the sports arena and said, what are they using? And how do we repurpose it for our needs?
Yeah, I mean, I can't get over because way back, I was impressed with it way back when it
Yeah,
was one garment because it was relatively comfortable. It wasn't a big deal, easy for people to wear. And fear is such an issue that,
sure.
I'm very big into teaching all sorts of balance exercises and
Mm,
really getting people exercising so that they don't fall. But a lot of
correct.
times, or if it's icy outside or something,
Mm,
this extra protection is just, is really wonderful. But I love how you've upgraded it so much
yeah,
since way back. So tell people, I think it's really important to explain the tech now because it's not thick, as you can see, it's
yeah.
relatively thin, but it's real to explain the technology, why this can prevent a hip fracture.
Okay. So we do actually have a fantastic video on our website that shows exactly the layers inside it, how it works, and how the whole the impact once it's impacted, how that then works to reduce. So absolutely go to our website and have a look at that. So I'll try and explain it in my layman's terms. Essentially, you've got each of these is a little pod, and that pod is made up of layers. So while it just looks like one, say, piece of foam, there is a pod in here which has got layers of a TPU type material and then technical foam. Now, we say technical foam, there's foam, which is just foam, and there's technical foam, which is an elevated level and does more than just provide cushioning. So layers of technical foam, and then that's in between more layers of the TPU. So what happens, it creates this little ear pocket, essentially. And when the impact hits the shield, what you'll see is if you look at the shield, there are tiny, tiny little pinprick holes around it. The the force hits the shield and the ear slowly leaves the shield, and at the same time, the foam absorbs some of that impact. And so it's a combined process of air pockets and foam. And then once the impact's removed, the shield just self-inflates. So think of it like a spring, but it's an air spring. So very different from, say, an airbag, which inflates, it works, but then it's done. You've got to regas it or roll it up, put it back in. This or completely replace it. This just reinflates, self reinflates over and over again. The air goes back in. And so then you've got all these little pods that all work together. And then they sit over the greater trochanter. So when we talk hips, when you put your hands on your hips, that's not where we're protecting. It's if you go a little bit down and feel that little protrusion outside, think of your widest part, that's where they sit. and bone behind it then gets that extra padding, I guess, that we often start to lose as we get older, and the bones underneath with osteoporosis are obviously much more um, fragile. So we need something else to do that job. So as I say, if you want to really look at the layers and see an animation of how that works and the impact we did, go to our website, phoenixhips.com, and it's all there. It's great.
So who do you recommend these for then?
So, it's really there's a number of people who can benefit from this. So let's start at the early stages. And again, I think back to my mum, who was not old and frail, early 70s, and she was osteoporotic. So going about her day, busy, very active, and running here, running there. And she was not a falls risk. Okay, so we kind of go back from this is just for people who are a high falls risk. Here's that bucket. But we talk about people who are fracture risk. So obviously, what we're talking about here is osteoporosis. You've got this underlying risk, which makes your situation not I'm old and frail and falling, but wow, if I do fall, I am at risk of a fracture happening. And don't need to get into the statistics of hip fractures and the terrible outcomes. We all know that. So at the early stage, we would say um, it's people who are maybe wearing them only when they go to the balance class or going to the park for the grandkids or the dog. Um, they've been told they've got osteoporosis and often been told, well, nowadays it's getting better, but sometimes told, okay, stop doing anything that increases your risk of a fall because if you fall, you're going to fracture. Um, so we're saying a little bit like nutrition, exercise, balance class, you name it. There's all these tools we have now in the toolbox to manage osteoporosis. That doesn't mean go and sit in your armchair and stop. And we're one more tool in the toolbox. Just so when you are doing that activity that increases your falls risk, put on your hip protectors. I have a customer who is young. She hikes everywhere, and got diagnosed with osteoporosis, had a break in her arm. Doctor said, stop your hiking. Her response was, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. What can I do to stop the negative outcome? So that's through there. And then it just keeps going up. So the other groups we work with obviously are those who are high risk of falls and high risk of fractures. So dementia, Alzheimer's, living in senior living. So it kind of really does span the whole gambit of who can benefit from these. And those people would be wearing them every day. We have customers wearing them 24/7. But at the starting point, it's a pair that you put on when you do that activity that increases your risk of the fall. Putting on your helmet when you go cycling. It's just that extra precaution to make sure that you're coming back from your walk. I mean, if you do happen to fall, that you've increased your likelihood of getting back up off the ground.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've had patients over the years who were major tennis players and their balance was
Mm,
incredible and their reflexes were amazing. And then the doctor said they had osteo. Nope, tennis is done. And I said, oh,
yeah, yeah.
just
It's a
don't go for that.
shame.
Just don't go for that crazy shot. But
Yeah,
that would be a perfect situation where you could wear the hip protectors and you just get a little more protection. In terms
yeah.
of what have you seen in terms of when people do fall? What's been your experience with the hip protectors?
Yeah, so we actually see a couple of outcomes, and it kind of differs on the person and the situation. One thing that is a really positive is that those people who have been told, well, you're fragile now, don't go and do anything, they lose a lot of confidence. And then that lack of confidence impacts on how they walk, the activities they do, and walking really cautiously is not always the best thing. So, what we find is those people who embrace a really holistic approach and say, okay, I've got osteoporosis. What do I do to manage that? And they get an increased level of confidence because they feel and they know that they're doing something positive to help this outcome. So they are eating better, they're going to the exercise class and they're putting on their hip protectors and just feeling a little bit more comfortable that they can keep doing this. And so confidence is a big thing. It's a real blow as we get older when something isn't quite as it was when we were young and we get fearful. So we're really about saying, don't stop the activity, modify it, just protect yourself. So there's that. And then at the other end, obviously, is the great stories are, hey, the foul, but I got back up. So we always say falling's not a problem. No, it's not great. We don't fall as softly as we did when we were kids. Um, but it's the getting back up is the problem. And if you can manage that fall in the best way possible and get back up, then you can do all you can to help the falls management. And look, and as we always say, falls management is your starting point. You don't want to fall. What can you do to manage it? But you cannot predict every fall. You cannot prevent every fall. So we say layer in the, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent it. But if I can't, what can I do to prevent the outcome? So yeah, there's a lot of components that go into it. Sometimes even the increased awareness of putting on your hip protectors in the morning, feeling that shield, and knowing, okay, I'm protected, um, works to enhance your focus on good mobility and falls management. And we see that in some of the like assisted living groups we work with. They see a reduction of falls at the implementation of hip protectors, which doesn't generally make sense, but it's that heightened awareness. Okay, we've got hip protectors on. We're looking at how do we manage our falls. We're looking at preventing them, and we're looking at keeping ourselves safe. Right, off we go for the day. So it's a really, it really is one more tool in the toolbox, one more thing you can do.
So I know you deal with a lot of nursing homes also and people in that situation who are way more likely to fall. So how much does it cushion? Like how much of the impact does the hip protector, what does it really do in terms of really making
Yeah,
a big difference in the fall?
yeah. So think of if you fall, and again, there's certain fracture thresholds, fall forces, all sorts of things, and it's so variable depending on your age, your height, where you're falling from, what you're falling onto. But essentially, any fall you have, your body is going to take 100% of that force. So there's nothing, it's not going anywhere else. It's going into you. If you've got good muscle tone, that's going to take some of that force. If you've got a little bit of extra fat layers, that's going to take some of that force. If you don't have those and you just got bone, that's going to take a lot of that force. And if those bones are fragile, then that's where the problem is. So this works to reduce, take out a chunk of that force. So you put it in some of our internal biomechanical tests, we showed an 80% reduction in force. So
80% reduction in force?
yes,
That was
so what went through, so we weren't pushing people over. We had, obviously, we have, it's been like, it's in an engineering lab, and we have force plates and weights. And so the weight drops on and the measurement is taken on the force plate underneath, which is essentially where the person is. And so we would measure if we drop that force, drop that weight, and it created a force. And we'd measure what is that force. And then we would put the shield in place and do the same drop with all the same parameters. And then the shield would take around 80% of that force. So a lot less of the impact is going to whatever's behind the shield. And at the lab, it's obviously just a force plate. In a person, that's the bone. So again, it all depends a little bit on a whole lot of parameters. Falling outside on the concrete, Um, Slipping on the ice and hard onto the ground is a lot harder than if you're falling onto a soft carpeted floor. Uh, but it's a significant chunk of the force is done by this one instead of your body.
And what have you seen with the nursing homes? Have you seen you said you saw a reduction in falls. What about reduction in fractures?
Yeah, so we are working with a group at the moment who are trialing it in their memory care units, the high risk memory care units, and so far in those communities there have been no fractures with those residents who are wearing the hip protectors. But as I say, the other thing was interesting in the beginning. They were saying, now we wrap a really amazing service around. We don't just send out a product and say, go at it, because we're very holistic and very focused on support for the staff, the family, the resident, everybody that's in the mix, because it's not a simple, I want the skin cream, I'm going to buy it and put it on. There's all these people that are involved in that process. So we do wrap a big amount of support. We call the staff, we do in services, we go and visit them, um, we got a call saying, well, something's happening because we haven't had these businesses are falling, right? They're falling. And so when you talk through the process, it's like, we're calling you all the time and checking in on these residents. We know which resident has it. We want to know how they're going, any difficulties, any positives, what's their fall rate this week, and they're seeing this reduction. So that's really exciting. And we're working with that group at the moment to expand that out to see, look, and we're really about data. So we're really now looking at, there's been a lot of anecdotal positive feedback. We've been doing this for a while now. And with our previous product that had been in use a lot longer, there was a lot of, hey, they're falling, but they're not fracturing. What we're really trying to do now is drill down and say, can we, by the process of focus and support and education and putting this on someone every day, can we also help to reduce falls? Because obviously in those senior living communities, falls are, they're a major concern. Um, and where I'm really excited, that's kind of a given. They need them. I mean, they need it. Everybody living there needs them. Um, but what we know is that not everybody wants to go into a senior living community. Um, they want to age in place. And for many people and for many families that wrap support around those people, um, one of the biggest fears and one of the biggest concerns and one of the biggest drivers for moving out of your own home and moving into a care setting is mum started to fall. Grandma's now falling more often. And so where I see a really exciting future is, what if we just extended that aging in place by a really, when you look at it from an annual perspective, even a daily perspective, if you're wearing them every day, you're looking at less than 85 cents a day. I mean, it's marginal cost, Um, no side effects. So zero side effects. You're not putting anything in your body, zero side effects, instantly effective. You don't put it on and say, well, in 6 months' time, you'll start to see the results of putting these on. You put those on in the morning and you are protected the entire time you have them on. And so, what we're really excited about is a lot more education around osteoporosis and fracture risk. And so I do a lot of work with they were the National Osteoporosis Foundation, Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation in the US, about how do we let these people know that there's solutions to help them age in place, help them manage osteoporosis naturally. So that's really where I see a really exciting future is getting to and that's, talking with people like you who are working with the people who are trying to manage their condition is, hey, put this on. If it gives you more time doing what you love, living where you love, then it's just such a great investment into your health.
Oh, I couldn't agree more because hip fractures, I mean, let's just discuss the statistics. I think it's 24% of people who fracture hip will die within a year of that hip
Yep.
fracture.
Hmm.
And another huge amount, I'm not exactly sure, I think it's at least 25%, if not higher, will end up having to be living in a nursing home or something. They lose their
Yeah.
ability to live independently. So the
Yeah. It's
consequences are
actually, yeah, it's a bit higher. It's,
what is it now?
it so, the general statistics are, yeah, 25 to 30% of those who have a hip fracture die in the first 12 months. Now, that's in the first 12 months. Keeps increasing. 50% of those who have a hip fracture can no longer live independently and need assistance with daily activities. So in many cases, it's a move to a nursing home or assisted living. But first, it's into the hospital. And for many people, that hospital stay is not positive. And look, I hate even talking about COVID because, nobody had anything good come out of COVID, but it's also heightened this desire to stay out of hospital. We don't want to go to hospital. Hospitals don't want us there. So the fall and the fracture, but then you've got your hospital stay. And there's so many terrible situations where the person never comes out of hospital back to their home. So they might survive, they might get the surgery, but they have to go from the hospital then to a some form of assisted living. So whether that's assisted living or whether that's a nursing home, that's the next step, and that's a terrible. I mean, then you're looking at recovery, and then you're looking at all the things that can happen after that. So, yeah, the stats are terrible.
Right, none of us wanna be the stats, but what I
No.
also love is the rest of the program that you're focusing the people that you're working with on fall protection. And
Yeah.
maybe because people are distracted and they don't really think about it, maybe just this focus, as you said, can
Mhm.
also be so positive. So it's just such a win-win. The
It is.
interesting thing, and they're not, it's funny because before this, I wanted to see what really fits because, as I said, they're thin. So I put my jeans on, which are relatively tight. And I could still fit them in, not comfortably. I wouldn't wear these
Yeah.
tight jeans, but other pants fit absolutely fine, like no problem whatsoever. And I know you sent me both the men's, which is, I just want to show people the men's is just like a regular brief. And excuse me. And so it's really an easy thing to wear. The very first one I saw in 2014, I was still impressed with, but it was all in one piece. So this is brilliant
Yeah.
because you wash the underwear. And how long do these last for?
So, these just keep on going, right? So, what we say is, don't wash them. They don't need washing. They've got a antimicrobial TPU coating, so you just wipe them down if you need to. Yeah. So this is the woman style. So it's hard to see on here, but again, go onto our website and you can see pictures. You can see just here is the pocket. So that is a flap that folds up, shield sits in, and the flap closes down. So once you've got your shields, you don't need to get new shields. You just get your garments, and then they're just like everyday underwear. So if you're just wearing them when you go to exercise class, you just put those underwear on that day, and then you take your shields out, put them on your dresser, put your underwear in the wash like normal. It washes and dries like normal underwear. You don't have to do anything different or anything special. It's got a great four-way stretch. The fabric is designed to be super comfortable and really hold nicely, but certainly not too tight. Everything about it is just all these little tweaks on the garment design to make it really is some of the most comfortable underwear you could actually wear. And then yeah, so the shields, once you've got the shields, you're set. You just buy underwear as you need it. So
Yeah, it's
really
just
easy.
funny because when I saw this version versus it had been many years since I saw the original version, and this is very comfortable. The underwear is extremely comfortable, and I like that
It is.
idea that you could put the underwear on, and because you certainly don't need to, and then if for the person who's just using this, whether they're walking outside or they have to, it's snowy out and you're going to get your
Yeah,
whatever it is, whatever the reason to give you that little bit of extra protection, you just throw the shields in, and then you can take them in and
absolutely.
out really easily, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's
So no,
really
it is
great.
great. And as I say, there's so much opportunity to incorporate it into other garments down the track. So watch the space, which is really exciting. It really is about taking amazing technology But then how do we incorporate that into everyday life in just such an easy, simple, and cost-effective solution?
Yeah, and it's amazing to me that this can take 80% of the fall, but it really is a very interesting material as you
Oh,
explained.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's great.
So tell us about the cost, 'cause it's relatively reasonable for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we so th- maybe a good time to talk about what we want to offer your
Yeah, yeah.
listener. Yeah. So, um, we recognize that when you're starting out, you're not wanting to necessarily invest a whole lot of money. So at the other end, those who are wearing them all day, every day, they get our starter pack. And that's 3 pairs of underwear, a pair of shields, and generally, depending on their needs, every year they just replace the underwear, and that's $306. So really low cost, works out about 85 cents a day. What we're offering for your special people is when you purchase your shields, so your pair of shields at $146, we're going to give you your first pair of garments for free. So you just have to do your hip measurement. So again, on our website, we've got exactly where to measure. We've got a little video that shows you how to measure it correctly, and then that corresponds to a size. And we have, we have 7 sizes. So it really is about comfort, good fit, the shield's being held in the right place, and we have men's and women's style. Um, in fact, the men's style is a really simple, kind of longer leg boxer. Yeah, and we actually have some women who choose to use that because it's they like the fuller, longer leg, looser leg, whereas the woman's is a really woman's brief. But yeah, you just pick the size, pick which style, and we give you that first pair of garments for free. So in that case, you're looking at $146 for what can be a long time of protection.
So what would they do? Or how do they get is there a certain link, or what's the best way
Yeah.
that they get the
So there's a link that you can put onto the below the
Okay,
information.
I'll include the link then
Yeah,
to the
they just
special
click
deal.
on that and it'll go to a page that talks about the special offer and how
Oh,
to access it.
perfect.
Thing we as I say, we're very much about looking at how do we wrap service and support around this product. And so what we know is that for many, many people, they don't know anything about these. And so they're not necessarily sure, is this right for me? Is this right for my loved one? So when you click on the link and go to that page, there's also a link to schedule a completely free, absolutely no obligation, 15-minute call with one of our hip protector specialists. And that's your chance just to say, hey, is this going to work for me? Should I think about it now? Is it something in the future? And hey, what about my mum? She's living in, should I get her some as well? How does it work? And that just allows you to have that extra conversation, one on one, personal call. And at the end of it, if you don't want to go ahead right now, obviously no pressure. You can go to the website, look at more information. Um, but also on that page will be if you do want to go, okay, yes, I'm going to go ahead now, then we've got it set up. The code just goes in and it gives you your garments for free. So really easy.
Oh, perfect. And I just have to say, you said you support education and you're supporting information. So I just have to say how kind it is that Natasha and her company is one of the sponsors of the summit. So they're helping make that happen, which I'm very grateful to you for because we're really spreading the word about all those other
Yeah.
things in terms of
That
exercise and balance training and all the things. This is not in lieu of, as Natasha said, this is not in
done.
lieu of any of that. This is just an added layer of protection, which is just
Yeah.
I think for so many people, this is invaluable. And, we want to live active, healthy lives. We want to enjoy ourselves. We don't want to be afraid just because of our
Yeah.
diagnosis. And I
Mm.
know the people that listen to this podcast are very empowered because they're doing all sorts of great things. And this just gives you like a little extra. But I'm very grateful that you're helping me spread the word about all the things through the summit that can help people in so many different ways. So
Oh, wait.
thank you,
So,
Natasha. Very
no, of
grateful.
course. We're excited to be part of it. I mean, you've got such an amazing group of people there, and so much amazing education. And yeah, look, what we often hear is the first time someone hears about hip protection is when they've had the fracture. And that's really devastating because, hey, great, we've got a customer. But what we want to do is say, how do we get people to hear about it before they get to that point? Um, and hopefully, then we're supporting somebody who then carries on with everything they're doing, and they're not having that fracture. They're not making that visit to the hospital. So anything we can do to work with amazing people like you and your experts that really is to spread the word, like let everybody know. And as I say, we'll have a conversation with you one on one. We'll talk through your situation. We can help you if you don't know how to measure. We can do everything we can do to say, hey, think about this as a solution. So we just, yeah, super excited to be working with you.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have to give you credit though. Years ago, I'm part of the New Jersey Interagency Council on Osteoporosis. So here you were from coming from New Zealand, and you wanted to get to as many people as possible and really spread the word. And we didn't know anything about this. And so you educated everybody, our entire group who deals with us. We oversee all the initiatives in the state of New Jersey. So Natasha came and showed us at that time the first iteration of this, and I can't get over how it's improved and so much easier, even though the
Yeah.
first one wasn't bad, it was
No,
comfortable as well.
that's what I keep saying. The first one was fantastic.
Yeah,
But just because something's fantastic doesn't mean you can't improve on it, right? So
right, it just
I'm
was
always,
one piece, so how easy that you just
yeah,
need underwear that goes in the wash and the hip protectors, which is so good.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I can't is there
That was
anything
I
else? Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you said that I formed some fantastic relationships and friendships, back, that I still have today. I have to talk about Sally Pullman, who, was just incredible with the work that she, still does, with the Healthy Bones program, in New Jersey. And, she's become a, lifelong friend and such an advocate for education and support and balance classes and what can we do and are we doing enough and can we do more? And so meeting with people like that is just inspiring because again, you become part of this network of people who are all committed to great outcomes. And so I certainly, as a, small business and female entrepreneur and all those things, it's just really inspiring for me to be part of that kind of community. So yeah, no, I appreciate the work you guys do to get the messages out there.
But just think about it, one fracture you prevent. Right? I mean, it must make you
I
feel
know.
so good that
It
all your
does.
work and your
Yeah.
creativity, it's
Yeah.
and then you prevented way more than one fracture, but each fracture you prevent is someone's life, the
Yeah.
life of the whole family.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's very profound. So
It is.
yeah.
It's like that sliding doors. I know years ago there was a movie about sliding doors, and it's that whole if I go this way, how does my life end up versus how do I go this way? And I really do look at that as saying, what changes can we make by a simple intervention? The pathway down a fracture is horrific. There is no good outcomes. Even if you recover well, even if the surgery works, and even if you go back to your own home, um, your fear of falling goes through the roof. I hear people who have survived the hip fracture, um, terrible, terrible situations where they say, if it happens again, I don't wanna go through that. I don't want even though my outcome was okay, and that's really upsetting. So it really is like one fracture, your life carries on. You never know what that journey, ended up being because you didn't have it, and to me, that's a really exciting, an exciting thing to be doing. So it's very, very
It's
meaningful.
it's true, it's what keeps me going too, just
Yeah.
knowing these pieces of it makes such a difference. If nobody nothing else, and just worked on their balance and I mean, there's so many different pieces, but any pieces that
Yeah.
people do are improving
Anything we do.
and reducing their risk of
Yeah.
fracture, and then you give a little extra protection, so if something happened, at least you're even I mean, 80%, I didn't realize it was that high, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
With the impact of the fall. But anyway, well, I can't thank you enough, and thank you also for supporting the summit and just spreading the word and helping
Thank you.
so many people worldwide. Because now you're back. You lived here for a little bit or back and forth. Yeah.
I lived in Dallas, loved it. As I say, COVID sent me home, but that's okay. I still get to travel up and still spend time up there. So I consider myself really where I live, but where I work and where I travel is all very kind of
And
different. And we're
this
very
goes all
fortunate.
over. I know you have distribution in the United States. Where's the
Yeah, at the
distribution?
moment, with this new Phoenix product, we have really just focused on New Zealand and US.
Okay.
It's kind of back to the basics
And
again, and but we do have interest from other areas, and but it's really about there is so many people, there are so many people in the US that we can look after. So before we start going further, let's just get those people looked after. Let's get that established and yeah, so that's really my
what
focus right
about
now.
Canada? Canada?
Again, Canada, look, occasionally we get people who find us and contact us and we send the product up to Canada. There's a huge opportunity to get distribution into Canada. Absolutely. Are we there yet? Not right now. But yeah, look, my vision for the company is obviously we will be global. We will be protecting people everywhere. There is no shortage of hip fractures in the world. And there's no shortage of people who want to do something to protect themselves. So yeah,
Oh, well,
big fan.
thank you so much. Any last minute things before we end? This has been so
No,
helpful.
no. Yeah, as I say, look, phoenixhips.com. It's normal Phoenix spelling Phoenix, hips, hips.com. Everything you need to know is there. But if you're not sure, don't do nothing. Have a call with us. Go to the link that we provide. Have a absolutely free, no obligation conversation, and get a little bit more information about your specific circumstance and whether or not Phoenix can help keep you safe, keep you active, keep you protected.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad because we talked about this and it hit me a while ago. I really should have Natasha on here because
Yeah.
we did talk about, I did a program with the state of New Jersey. It was the was it World? It was in October for Osteoporosis Month. And we did talk about your hip protectors. I did a little piece with the
Hey,
Interagency
thank
Council on
you.
Osteoporosis. And Sally gave a talk about these hip protectors. And I'm thinking I really should educate people in my community in the podcast because it's just such a win-win situation
Yeah,
and it's easy to implement, like as you said. So
absolutely.
yeah, well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here and thank you for all the work and just spreading all this important information as well as helping with, support with the summit and just knowledge around the globe, really. So, and but I
Thank
have to
you.
say something. I love New Zealand. I was there once. It's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So,
It
I
is.
wouldn't
We're
mind. I don't know
very,
if I'd
very
mind living
lucky.
there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not the worst place to have to call home. So no, very, very, very
Wow.
fortunate to be living in a beautiful part of New Zealand, up the very top of the North Island, very sunny and subtropical, and it is beautiful. So yes, I am very, very lucky.
It is just so gorgeous there, and the people were so nice, and the food was good. It was my
Yeah.
daughter was going to, yeah, she was going abroad at college and in Australia, so
Oh, okay.
we did a little trip to New Zealand, and it was just
Fantastic.
incredible, so
Yeah. Oh,
so
good. And yeah, well, as I say, I have a very special place in my heart for the US. I love my times up there. I love traveling there. I love living there. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to live a bit in both.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Maggie. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Natasha as much as I did, and now have a better understanding of hip protectors and how they can give you an extra layer of protection. All the links that Natasha talked about will be in the show notes, as well as the link to my upcoming summit, More Natural Approaches to Osteoporosis and Bone Health 2.0. There's over 50 new talks, fabulous experts, cooking demonstrations, exercise demonstrations, and there's just something for everyone. So I highly recommend signing up. I worked really hard and I just so excited to share this information with all of you. So make sure to sign up for the summit. And I also look forward to seeing you on the next episode.